you guys for joining. I'm Serena Roberts. For anybody that doesn't know me, I've been leading this group since about 2016 with Vince and a couple old guys named Luke and Katrina and Megan. So we've got a good crew of people that help put this on every month. You need a chair? We have so many people in person here, guys, that we have had to get out like the cheesy folding chairs. Seriously, it's such a good thing. Okay, let's see. So we have an awesome agenda today. First off, we have Amy Standal and Kate Kippels from SetSite, who are going to show us how they have pushed the boundaries and gone beyond the basics of analytics as it pertains to retail. And then we've got Will Strouse from Page Data, who I'm assuming is going to talk about your sort of data journey based on the title. I haven't seen either of these presentations yet, but I'm super excited for it. Before we jump into our presentations, we will, as we always do a couple of get to know members, where we'll take people, volunteers, or I will volunteer you to get up and answer just a few basic questions, or you can go totally off script and just tell us whatever you want us to know about you, both in person or online. That's all fair game, wherever you are. And then after our presentations, as long as we have time and we're not just like all dying to get to happy hour, which we probably will be, but we usually do a segment called Best Thing I Learned or group therapy. And that's really just an opportunity for everyone to either share some little tidbits that they learned and thought was like cool, interesting, like, oh man, I wish I knew that a year ago, it would save me time. Or if you're stuck on some weird issue that you just have beat your head against the wall trying to solve, it's an opportunity to share that with the group as best you can, and we can try to crowdsource a solution or two for you to try. And then we'll end with happy hour, let's see, of Page Data, sponsor of today's event, and that is like a 5-minute walk from here at Bauhaus. Am I saying that right? Bauhaus Brew Labs. So for those of you virtually, have a drink of whatever you prefer at home, and cheers with us. All right, so let's jump into get to know a member. If you are virtual and you would like to volunteer, go ahead and use like the raise your hand function, and I'm gonna. Here so I can see this. Okay, there we go. So yeah, I'll give you like 30 seconds to drum up some courage. Otherwise, I will just pick a couple people, and it's kind of always fun to do people that like either have been coming for a long time and have never done it, or new people first time as well.
I haven't done it.
You haven't done it? All right.
Want to hit me with the questions?
Yeah, let me advance to the next slide. I can click on the right thing. Okay.
All right.
These are the questions. Come on up here so people can see your face.
Yeah. I'm Anthony Byro. I work for a company called EAC Product Development Solutions. We're based here in Minneapolis. We actually work out of uptown. We have a bunch of space in the WeWork office. My role is Sales Operations Manager. I've been doing that for 3 years, and for the 14 before that, I was their Director of Marketing. And then I pivoted. I really like the reporting side of the marketing world. I'm like, I could probably just do all of this all the time. So I switched over to operations. Most of the data that I work with is around sales trending, sales forecasting, tracking, profitability. Some of my team works on more service delivery side analytics, where they're tracking project profitability, time entry. Our job is kind of to chase around the squirrels in the office and make sure that everybody is doing what they're supposed to be doing also. So just the general operations metrics. I have been using Tableau for 3 years. The first year, it was a shizzle show. I had no idea what I was doing. And then last year, I took the spring, what was like the training pass thing? Did anybody else do the training pass?
Yeah, when it was free.
It wasn't free.
Or
We paid for it.
reduced.
We paid for it. It was like $2,000, but you got to take basically all of the training within 90 days. It was intense. It took a lot of hours of training. And since then, I've been able to move from barely being able to get things going to mixing up data sources from our own Postgres kind of data base, data lake, to like one-off pulls that I need to use. I'm getting really, really good at formulas and not like the fancy ones that were on your quiz last month. I got most of those wrong, but you want me to slice and dice forecast data and alignments and buckets for forecast segments. I can write that SQL-esque formula when I go tomorrow. Tableau features or functions I struggle with. This is a little embarrassing, it's a simple one. Parameters, like, they never work the way I want them to work. So I just make a bunch of filters and make people click a bunch of things. Probably parameters, and then trying to get data that's similar, all linked up data sets, and then make one workbook with all of my business in it instead of having to make different workbooks. I've seen people that have made seemingly completely different visualizations show up in one workbook, and I don't know how that. So, there you go, that's me.
Love it, love the honesty. Thanks, Anthony. Do you like to be called Anthony?
I am Anthony, yep.
All right.
In first grade, I had a Tony in my class. He's still Tony.
So don't confuse him with Tony from kindergarten. Okay.
I can volunteer unless there's something.
Yeah, I don't see hands raised, and that might be because I'm just not looking at it right, but I don't see no hands raised. So come on. Maybe we'll force someone to do it online after you.
This is an interesting dynamic having a computer just in front of. So I'm Emily Buzzle. I work for a company called Genoa Healthcare. It's a behavioral health pharmacy provider, and I'm a senior strategic analyst. I just spend all day with our pharmacy dispensing data, analyzing it. And by pharmacy dispensing data, I mean we have 600 pharmacies around the country, and we dispense behavioral health medications to folks generally with severe mental illnesses. So I'm looking at, I'm looking at drug types, quantity dispense, payer information, demographic information, and really just kind of answering any question that comes across my desk as people turn to me for just answering any kind of question. As far as how long I've been using Tableau, so I'd say I've been using it hardcore for about 1.5 years. In grad school, I took a class about visualization best practices, and the teacher gave us the option of using Tableau or Excel. And because I knew Excel, I went the easy path, and Tableau's so superior. So I'm glad that after that class, I went the Tableau route. As far as what I'm good at, so I saw this, that I don't have a personal presence on Tableau Public, but I work. And there was a really cool dashboard that I saw. I don't know if it was a visit of the day or what, but it was a great dashboard. And it was tall, it was long, and it told a story. So you scrolled down, and it had some text and then a visualization and then some text and another viz. And I was like, that's really cool. Let me try to mimic that sort of thing. So I created a similar dashboard that it kind of tells the story of our HIV book of business and kind of how we got started, and it builds upon here's the high level metrics, and then let's dig into each one and kind of try to understand the data in a more granular way. So I'd say I'm good at kind of storytelling with data in Tableau. One thing I want to get better at though is, I feel like I'm behind the 8 ball as far as using Figma to, well, I'm 100, like I don't have Figma, I've never used it. But I want to make my visualizations and my dashboards just look prettier, like have a backdrop. So that's one thing. And then level of detail expressions. Every time I write one, it tells me I can't mix aggregate and non-aggregate functions. I'm like, I don't understand. I just have to like do something else. So I've never quite cleared that hurdle.
Awesome. I have questions if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So what is, and if you can't say it because, you know, PHI or PI, whatever, write your information, that's cool. But I'm just interested, is there like a most, like the coolest or most interesting question that you've answered?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Where is it?
So,
And I probably should have like emailed you ahead of time and let you know about this. I don't mean to put you on the spot.
yeah, I'm trying to, I have examples from other things that have nothing to do with pharmacy, but that's not relevant to my role.
Okay, well, how about another question? My other question is like, so when you build these long form dashboards, like how, my thing is that they do look great and they do tell great stories and they have an absolute purpose, but I have found that users, especially like, you know, middle and upper management, they don't do it. They're just like, that is so foreign to them to just keep scrolling and keep scrolling and keep scrolling. They're like, no, I just want the same that fits on one screen and I can click and change what I want to change. You guys, do you feel like you guys have good adoption with those types?
I think a reasonably good adoption. I mean, like, I think across the board, it's always a struggle to get upper management to like look at something in the kind of detail that you want them to look at. But I think that like one thing about my organization is that we're not super mature when it comes to analytics and visualization. Like we're not, I don't know, you hear about like JLL and like they've got hundreds of people that all do analytics and they've just got this awesome infrastructure. We're not like that. Like I'm one of a handful of Tableau users. I'm the only Alteryx user. Like, you know, like we're just kind of, we're a novice organization when it comes to analytics. But what that means is there's a lot of opportunity for like kind of building data literacy and like showing people stuff and explaining like, oh, you know, like when you know, explaining the difference between like script level data versus patient level data. You know, there's a different aggregation, different granularity there. So because there's a lot of opportunity to kind of like explain things to people, it might lend itself actually better to the long form dashboard.
Thanks, Emily. Sorry, trying to make sure. Cheers. Vince, could I have you go upstairs to the like up one level? There's like the field collective office. Let me see if you can grab 2 3 chairs. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Emily.
Thank you.
That was awesome. And by the way, I had found like when you do get those where you can't mix, you know, aggregate and non-aggregated. Like sometimes using the attribute function inside there works, or like you can get sneaky with like mins and maxes, or just like try like summing one thing and not the other.
There's a lot of like, in Tableau, I find there's a lot of like jury rigging things. Like something won't work, and it's like, let me just cheat in sort of this like, you put in like a filler variable, and then it works. And it's like, okay.
For sure. That's like a step in the process. At some point, you'll understand why the hell that didn't work the first time. What?
Right.
Anyway, we've got many.
Long form, is that more attractive because it's more
More like a, what did you say?
More like your phone, you know, with the phone, when you look at a presentation, a lot of times you're scrolling up and down.
Yeah, I think, you know, with like the digital natives, you know, the millennials and the generations beyond them are far, you know, easier to adapt to that kind of thing than the people who are, you know, in all of the management roles. Yeah, still today, you know, boot them out, take over the world. All right. Let's see, what time are we at? 2:48. Okay, well, let's get started, because I just want to make, we can come back around if we have some more time. But if you guys would give us a second, we can have these guys, if you want to just share your screen, you can come up here or turn your camera on so they can see your, yeah, that's fine. Okay. Hold on one second. That's me. That's amazing. Everyone online can see it.
I was like,
It's a key thing. I need to.
It's been so long since we ran out of chairs for one of these. I'm excited. This is a cool problem.
Where's that guy?
Come back to Zoom. Little space, okay, yeah.
there we go.
Okay, let me see if I can make this bigger. Is this okay? I still kind of want to see the chat and make sure. Okay, Katrina says there's a tiny bit of background noise when people move around. So, trying to move it to okay.
No, so.
Yeah, so why don't you guys just start talking and then we can, if those online can just let us know if you can hear Amy and Kate.
All right, I'm Kate Kippels. I'm here with Sudspace Software. I'm here with my colleague, Amy Standal. And we are a web-based retail analytics system. We host a variety of Tableau sites as well for our clients. I think around 40, something like that. And we pull in over 1 billion records of data each week. So we're hosting a lot of data. Before we get started, just a little bit about me. I'm the Director of Operations at SetSite. And I recently gained my Tableau certification, though I've been utilizing it for 6 or 7 years. I love to do pottery and throw pots with my husband, and it's kind of a bad picture, but every single nook and cranny of our house is filled with mugs. If anybody needs a mug, happy to hook you up.
Everyone's awesome.
I also
have a real tough time hearing you on the call right now. So I don't know if you guys would want to
move.
add or no. This is, the audio is actually popping out in the middle.
All right.
Yeah.
So how about now? I'm an avid cook.
Quiet.
Yeah, can't hear.
Let me
Too far from the.
Does that work?
So I was just about to say, I'm an avid cook. I love to scroll videos on Instagram of other people cooking, and I don't suggest that you put mere cake in your feed. You will lose hours of time. It's very trippy. It's very trippy. This is my colleague, Amy Standal.
Mine's more about my family. That's what I pretty much, with a 19-month-old daughter at home today, keeps me pretty busy. I'm a client success manager at SetSite. I've been there for about 9 years. We went through the same Tableau certification a couple months ago.
That was intense. That really was intense.
Yeah. So happy to pass that and have the certification. There, the fun stuff, my husband, as you can see, is pretty tall. I met him playing volleyball. Also, my daughter, we still play a few nights a week. So between work, kids, couple puppies, keep me busy. Well, we are going to hop into retail analytics. So that's what we do, and just how we've used Tableau to kind of push beyond just the basics. Everyone wants data, but how do we push beyond just the basic reporting?
I don't know if you guys have heard, I'm gonna drop some knowledge on you today. there's something going on with the economy, and it's messing up retail big time. So, of course, I'm being facetious. You know when you walk in the store today that you're paying a lot more for those items. And in addition to that, a few months ago, you couldn't find an item on the shelf. Now there's an overabundance. So it's all over the news. You can't get away from it. This is just a selection of the different retailers that we're holding for today. We use APIs, bots, EDI, uploads, you name it, any source of data that we can get our hands on, we're loading that into a database today. For kind of ease going forward, we're probably just going to refer to Target because that's what is in our backyard, and everybody I think in this area certainly is familiar with shopping there. I just wanted to start where we came from. So 16 years ago when I started with SetSite, this was the report that our clients received, and actually they loved it. This was indicative of the data that was available at the time. So that's not that long ago. And what it is there's a customer number, a product description, 8 weeks of sales. We've got on hands, on order, a few inventory metrics, and then year to date. And this is current data that I dumped into the old report. And when I did this, I only got down to line 8. There's 250 lines. In today's data structure, this data is actually over 450,000 records. So that's how much the data, how much more granular things have gotten today. But I flipped out, and I think I saw in the comments, someone said Target was cutting their orders. And I feel for our clients, they've done a fantastic job of managing through what has been a historically very, very difficult time. So when I looked at this data, I see in the current week, for that item, 5 items were ordered. In the previous weeks, I'm assuming that there was a promotion run, but I don't know. And I'm just seeing units. I don't know. What did that do to my dollars? Did I cannibalize this week's sales? Probably. Do I care? I don't think so, because I've actually got over 4,000 units on hand. And I've only sold 1,100 year to date. And oh, by the way, that on order column, it's empty, and that's how I get paid. So I'm freaking out. How do I get my retailer to order more product? And that's the struggle that a lot of our clients are in right now.
Yeah, they over-ordered, chasing our industry in the last couple of years with everything going on, chasing into product. And now as we continue to kind of, life gets back to normal a little bit, we're now struggling to sell through those computer desks and patio furniture that everybody bought a couple of years ago, and now, are just kind of sitting over inventory. I think we had talked about earlier, like TVs, if you need a TV, probably going to be on sale in the next few months.
Actually, I walked the store with our dev team last week. Yep, the TVs are on sale. And just for frame of reference, Target would like you to hold something like 5 or 6 weeks of supply. You've got something like 3 years right there. This is an example of another report that people actually still utilize today. It's just a dump out of purchase order data. And between those two reports, per vendor, per retailer, people are spending about 10 hours a week analyzing their data, not even really making, business decisions, just kind of getting at the basic facts of what's happening.
Can I just ask real quick, you're referring to your clients. The ones you showed on the screen, are those your clients or more like manufacturers of products?
Exactly, manufacturers and manufacturers reps. So we are partnered with some of the largest reps in the Twin Cities, and we also have several clients that are just direct suppliers.
Yeah, one of our largest clients works with about 400 vendors to Target. So they utilize our software, we pull in all the data to then send out that reporting to those different vendors. So that's just one of our clients so they're using our system, we're processing all the data to easily send out reporting to all the different suppliers. Total at Target today, we pull in data for about 2,000 different vendors every week into our data pool. So lots and lots of data. This is where we're at today with our program. Our online program is all Excel-based. Excel is not dead. You know, people want to get away from Excel.
It's a very powerful report, actually.
Yeah. They want to get away from Excel, but yet at the same time, there are just certain things that we found that Excel does do. So, you know, and some people still, no matter how much you show them amazing visualizations, they're like, but I want this Excel report that I can send out. So this is where we're at today. You know, this is a report just like our last one that shows you sales information, but now it goes into that next level. So we went from just one row of data per item for however many weeks to about 20 rows of data for one item, where we now have sales by week, in-stock information, out-of-stock inventory, weeks of supply. You know, you see we're actually pulling in down here, these are purchase orders that this retailer has written to the vendor. So we're pulling in what's been ordered, when is it going to hit stores. So they just have a lot better understanding of where things are in the supply chain. How can we, you know, where do we need, as you can see here, red, we have conditional formatting built in, which the old report wouldn't. So we can see red, yellow, green. This item, for instance, is out of stock when this report was ran. So we need to do something to try and fix that inventory situation.
Still, it's really ugly. I don't want to look at this every day. And we've gone maybe from 10 hours to at least 5 hours spent, probably per vendor, per retailer, analyzing this one spreadsheet just to get at making business critical decisions. So,
yeah. So one of the reasons we chose Tableau when we're looking at a couple reports we've shown you, where we are, where we're at today for set side is, you know, just the ability, the resources that are available, trainings, online, the community, you know, just today where we have questions, there's people to reach out to. But also we want that data visualization. You know, I think you mentioned Excel versus Tableau, and it's like, you can do some of it in Excel, but if you really want the visualization that pops, we felt that Tableau gave that to our clients and was a miss that we had in our current services.
and again, I think it's a proven fact that Tableau is going to save you time at getting some of those critical KPI that are only going to enhance what you're doing in Excel today.
So a little bit about how we store our data. We use multiple different platforms. Most of our stuff is in SQL. We use SQL databases. We have a few different databases that we preset for our clients that pull in daily sales, gross margin, inventory, purchase orders, you know, across the board. Within SQL, we also utilize Snowflake on a daily basis as far as the billions of rows of data that Kate was talking about. You know, we do data down to the daily store item level. So you can imagine if every item in a Target store and trying to pull that information, it's very large files.
There's talk of hourly
Is there?
for Walmart, yeah.
Yeah.
How many millions of rows is
I don't even know if I could say.
For hourly data? I don't even know.
Hourly, you're probably in the billions again.
So I can tell you one of our middle of the road clients who does store level weekly, so not data, they get store level weekly data. Their Snowflake database has 370 million rows of data in it that we process through and add to every week.
I think some of your subsequent slides will show this, but not only has the data grown this way, but oh my God, it's grown this way as well. So it's become quite a bit wider. Again, the metrics are much more granular. We're not just looking at sales, we're looking at promo sales, circular sales, the Target Circle sales, reg sales,
Drive up, pick up, you know, how are we ordering it,
yeah,
all this
online.
information. So we use a few different, one of the things I wanted to just call out is little Google Sheets, and maybe I'm just new to this, but for us, it's actually been kind of game-changing with our clients because we utilize Tableau Server, and with Google Sheets, I'm actually able to put a sheet out on Google where they can change data, manipulate it. I can make it a live data source connection within Server where their data is automatically updated within their workbook or dashboard then.
I can't tell you guys how excited I am about this process as the Scrum Master, because if I had to give this to our dev to build an ingestion, build a UX, put an additional table in the database. I might be waiting once, it might move someone else's project to the side. So when Amy came with this, I was pretty happy.
So I have just a quick little Tableau workbook I put together, just so you can kind of see the sheet off the like authentication process. So I tried to open this Tableau workbook when I got here, and I get this pop-up that says, what account, what Google account, or what email do I want to authenticate my ability to see the data. So I'm gonna say I'm using my, and I then get a second screen that says, okay, I wanna allow, it allows Tableau Desktop to access my Google authentication.
Oh no.
Well, that's not what it's supposed to say. I didn't check it, I should have done
Are
it.
your Wi-Fi in?
Yeah, it might be the Wi-Fi blocking you, which is just another sign of how secure it is, Amy.
Yeah, yeah,
Nice.
there we go. Yeah. Just see, this is the sheet that we were referencing, so this is where a client could actually put in, hey, what is my vendor projected to sell, you know, in the month, or what orders is Target gonna write in the month of June? They say, hey, they're gonna sell 400,000, we pull in their actual orders, they're at 1 million, oh, you know, like, this is great, we're up, so maybe we need to adjust our forecast in the future. They can go into the sheet, adjust their forecast, hit refresh in Tableau, and they're able to see their data. So I just wanted to call that out, because like I said, it was new for me, but it's really been a kind of change.
Yeah, it gives people the ability to interact with their data so much more.
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as they don't change the formatting, right?
That we've you know, it takes a little training to make sure that, you know, hey, don't change the title of the column or it's gonna break your link, but it at least gives them that flexibility without having to send a test.
So you said clients are poking around in these and changing things. Does it wipe out their changes and refresh it with your clean version of it every time they
It's a
close it?
live connection.
And if they close it and open it, it'll be.
Yep, they just have to hit refresh to their.
Google Sheets does keep versions, so should something happen, you can always go to a back version.
Yeah, so it's been really nice to be able to give a little bit of the control back to the people we work with versus just the preset data sources that we set. Those are great, but it just gives them one extra level of, you know, information.
It's comfortable with them.
Right. It gives them a little more control instead of them saying, hey, what about this? Can we add this? Where they kind of have that, they can do it themselves or, you know, type thing. So talking about our preset data sources, a couple of reports we wanted to share with you about the retail industry. We have 2 that we're going to go through today that we've set up using Tableau now with our clients. Number 1 is an inflation report, just like we talked about earlier in the presentation here. It's a little bit small. I'll actually go into our Tableau server and pull this up, but I just wanted to show you an example. You can see that this says high effect. You'll notice that all of the KPIs up here are red. So what this is doing is it's saying, hey, your average sell price has gone up and your units have gone down. So because of the cost of things going up to the consumer, less units are being sold.
Definitely affected.
Yeah, so ideally you'd want to see if the top row is red, your sell price has gone up, and your bottom row would maybe still be green, that it hasn't affected your sales. So this is where we put this together to say, hey, what vendors, like I said, we have a client that works with 400 different suppliers. They can easily call it like, oh, this is a supplier we need to look into more. This is being highly affected. My next slide, just the opposite. This is a supplier who is red, just what I told you, red across the top, but very green. They are, if you look at this, they're up 34% in their retail sale price, but up almost 70% in their
I wouldn't say
units.
there's no effect. I would say inflation is good for these guys.
What's the width of the line?
The width of the line is the sales. Or sorry, the size of the line is promo sales,
Yes.
and then the color is the sale. Yep, so we'll kind of, so if they ran a promo, the line gets bigger. So you can kind of see that the sale price goes down, but the size line, yeah, it's getting bigger. 'Cause there's-
We had a lot of debate about that section because we've got 1 million reports that look at year-over-year sales. But we really needed to kind of flip it on its head and look at it in a different way to call out the effect of inflation and kind of force the viewer to see that.
So I'm gonna hop over here just to our server. I had our Tableau administrator set me up with just a special login as a viewer here. So
You have a really difficult time with Excel, developing what it should be, just
exactly.
very challenging.
So that's where we showed you those, like Excel has its place, but in this case, it's very hard to pull this out in a timely manner without having how many different tables as tabs to try and, pivot that data. So here's the report in our Tableau server. You can see the one that I have up here has, some different average sell price. You can see up at the top. One of the things I wanted to call out is we do have filters built into this directly on here. So our clients can go in and say, do we want to look at last 4 weeks, last week, year to date? What type of information do we want to look at? How do we want to sort the data? So we're giving them a bunch of options in one place in one report to just easily look at their information. We also have down here at the bottom, I didn't do screenshots of this, but it actually breaks it out by different, how they want to break it out. So this is, for instance, by cold and cough, pain relief. So now we can see cold and cough has had a pretty significant price increase, but their units are actually up as well. So in cold and cough, they haven't been affected by the inflation as much as, eye care or pain relief within that. So they can start to get down to a more granular level. And then this last section here is actually by SKU. So they can start at that high level where we at, but really what's affecting it and how do we get down to, should we be making changes, at an item level to some costs as well.
I think before we leave this slide, I could see the effects of this just walking the store last week on some of the signs and what's gone on sale. It's a good time to buy a TV. I think Amy said that, so.
Yeah. So that is one of our reports. The other report that I wanted to hop over into, I'll go back here to my favorites, is we talked briefly about how people buy product, right? They go out into a store, they order it online, they now drive up in their car. Recently, that's all been data that we can now get. Before, you just get, hey, you sold this much. Well, now there is 31 different channels that Target provides to us on a weekly basis that all mean different things that our clients can look at if they want to. Shipped, if they're ordering it to shipped and having it that way. So it's kind of interesting to start to get down to that. So this is where we started with our set site system for the online versus store omni-channel report. I just took a screenshot of Excel and put it in here so you can kind of see, but it breaks out.
It's a nice report.
Store units. Flex, as Target calls it, is anything that was ordered online, but someone went to the store or they used store inventory to support that online order. Online sales, so it's breaking it out down to 3 or 4 different levels. And then today, we are now at this. So with the use of Tableau, we've been able to go from that one line per item to this dashboard that now tells me, the top part here is I did 5.3 million in sales in store, as it calls out, almost 1 million online, and then the bottom part is shipped. Again, filters on here that you can see last week, year to date. We have top items. One thing that I want to just call out on the bottom, here's the top fulfillment methods, as we call them. So store has always been #1, but it continues to stay pretty high.
It's validating Target's own strategy of trying to get us all to do a Target run.
Yeah. But you'll notice store over time, over the last 4 weeks, has actually tapered off. So we were looking at why, what happened? Well, this one down here decided to pick up. Well, recently, and when we talk about all of our data, Target decided to start sending a channel called carryout. Still don't know what it means, honestly, because it just says it's an in-store purchase. So it's an in-store purchase, but it's labeled as carryout. So those store sales that were there before are now going under just a different channel in the data. So if our clients didn't know that, if we couldn't show them, then how do they know? They're looking at, oh, my store sales are down. It's well, no, not really. They just shifted the data. So that's what our company does for our clients. So I think we have just a couple slides left.
I hate to bring it all back to cake, but I really like cake. But I think it's a really apt analogy. I mean, you have to have good ingredients to make good pizza. I mean, we pull in a lot of data. We have to have the right data, and we spend a lot of time cleaning it, cleansing it, validating it. I'm sure you guys too. We try to put it together in a meaningful way, and then present it in a somewhat attractive, I think you could argue that's not the best looking cake, but whatever. In a way that you imagine tastes good, and that's when people actually are gonna go ahead and consume these dashboards. Kind of other things that we've learned, less is definitely more. The thing that I love about these dashboards, especially the inflation report, is there is a ton of KPI that you aren't even seeing that go into the calculations that we present. It's simple, it's clean, it's easy. I think Coco Chanel said, before you leave your house, remove one of your accessories. I probably slaughtered that quote, but apply the same thing to your dashboards. If you're just using a gimmick or a feature in Tableau because you think it's cool, but it's not really providing value, take it out of there. It doesn't belong.
And that's what we have. Any questions? You guys want to like us on LinkedIn?
Yeah, I would love it.
There's a question.
Yeah.
Great, well, thanks for sharing and.
Yeah.
Really good setup, context on how you guys built this and how the end users leveraging this data and the journey from Excel to Tableau. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I'm curious, you know, the visual on inflation, there's anything with price elasticity. The reason why I ask is we heard as we went into this, you know, the world's changing fast, that things were much less elastic as we went up. And as we're starting to come down on the backside, are we seeing anything yet? Are we going to be surprised again that?
You know, price elasticity is a big topic in category management, and maybe that could be something, Amy, that we develop another dashboard for.
Yeah.
It's definitely a topic that does come up from time to time.
Yeah.
Is the width of your client group wide enough to kind of tell what people are buying? When you said that one client that their sales were up substantially.
Yeah.
Is it wide enough to say to your other clients, well, these are things that are performing well?
Yes. Yeah, I can tell you that client is in the toy department, and they do a lot of movie releases type toys, so they're not really affected. So even as their cost goes up, people still want your Marvel and Avengers and Top Gun and, you know, all that type of stuff. So we're seeing, you know, those types of things. Obviously, your commodities that you need aren't really being affected, but yeah, we definitely have across the board, we can say within certain departments, things are up or down, you know, take a closer look.
Do you guys do any like formal anonymizing of the data and blending like across your clients?
No. We don't, just because of like kind of like NDA, you know, data. We can't really share across. We can give insight, but we can't share data across clients.
Question. Does your reach of the data extend into, I'm guessing clients that have both a grocery component and sort of physical retail? I'm just curious if the strategy around inventory management has changed on the grocery side the way it has in non-grocery.
We do have clients that are in both, that do, you know, multiple. I know that grocery, again, kind of depends on what type of grocery you're talking about, right? So if you're talking about just I'd like to have that, but I don't need it, those things have a different approach than the day-to-day things that they know people are going to buy. So I think it's hard to say across, you know, grocery in general or across toys in general. It really has gotten down to that macro level of looking at the data to figure out, you know, I'm in beef jerky, but I sell the old school beef jerky and turkey jerky is, I don't, you know, like, and being able to see that.
I think the difficulty our data is so granular when thing we didn't touch upon is domestic versus import. And so for our vendors who are import, they are placing orders from anywhere from 6 to 8 months out. And so that just ups the critical nature of the reporting.
Business award for next Christmas will be by October of this year. So they will actually order and award business before the holiday season of 2022. So it's mainly because a lot of it is import and making sure you have the product, the supplies, make that product, all that.
Blows my mind, that means there's someone planning what we're gonna want 18
Yeah.
months from now.
And some of them are listening on this very call, and thank you guys.
You know what I'm gonna want for dinner tomorrow. I kind of know that, I'm not tonight. It kind of amazes me, I'm a big guy, I go to Walmart to find a shirt. And if there's a shirt there that's only my size maybe, and it's gone. If you go back a week later, there's still definitely replaced. And so one of the thoughts I had is in different areas of the country, there's more big guys up here than there's in Southern California. I wonder if they're using new type services to indicate, hey, every time one of these is on the shelf, it's sold. Why wouldn't we put more in Minnesota, less in Southern California?
Yep, and they do. They look at DC or distribution centers, what is sold at that level. I mean, it's definitely just a numbers game, right? It's kind of a mirror ball too. What's going to sell today? And that's where we're in the situation we are, because 2 years ago, everything kind of skyrocketed, and now, it's kind of turning back to, I don't want to say it, more normal, right? Like more normal shopping versus just, so, yeah.
I think it's gonna go like this for a very long time, but I hate to say it.
Yeah.
All right, let's give these ladies.
Yeah.
Okay.
Speaking of big guys.
And I do just quickly want to apologize to, leave that there, just apologize to those of you guys online. We're in a space that has these beautiful wood floors upstairs above us. However, they offer absolutely no acoustic, insulation, so it's loud. I'm sure it just sounds like we're in a Zumba classroom or something like that. So just bear with us. I know. Does anybody have a USB-C charger?
The same as the Mac.
Yeah, I think so. If it's a new one. I did not bring my deal. And you know what? Just love that.
Set on your dongle, is there USB-C for the Asian one?
Yes. This thing's actually plugged into my power deal.
Blame. Okay, he looked for me.
Plugged in?
Oh, yeah.
So I recognize it.
Yeah. How are you guys doing over there?
Good. Space is obviously gorgeous businesses for us.
Yeah.
It's good time.
You keep expanding.
Yes, we're doing up and I think the hip.
Oh, wow.
Between our.
Good?
Yep, we're good.
All right, we're good.
All right, go
Ready
ahead,
to
Will.
go? Okay, I'll let you go.
Solid.
I move around a bit, I don't wanna
All right,
trample you.
I'm gonna go in this corner.
So, yeah, thank you, Amy and Katie, that was really good stuff. I love seeing the early reports, and kind of that transition up to some of the new stuff you've built. It's my favorite thing with this. So hello, is this gonna let me click and go to my presentation? So hi, My name is Strouse. This is my first time in Minneapolis. I want to say you guys have absolutely lived up to your reputation as like the most polite place in the world. I'm from New England, I'm from Boston pretty much, and it's not. So everybody, I want to say thank you to all of you for all the people who've been nice on elevators and on the sidewalk, and it's like, people say hi and they really care how you're doing. I went to the ballpark the other night, about a Twins game. You guys lost in extra innings, but it was beautiful, like beautiful stadium, beautiful crowd. I've just really enjoyed my time in the city. So I've been using Tableau for a little under a decade. Kind of started by accident. I'm from New England. I live in New Hampshire. I am a Tableau ambassador and one of the leaders of the Boston Tableau user group. And I'm here because I work for PH Data. I'm a principal consultant with PH Data, located right down in Minneapolis at the other Fueled Collective. So I got a little confused, but it's okay. My Lyft driver figured it out for me. And I actually studied criminology in college. I went to school. You did? Okay. That's funny. So I really, really love, my sister was in the FBI and she was a cop. My brother-in-law's in the FBI. I was really interested in criminal profiling. And I really wanted to be the smartest character on Criminal Minds. Does anybody watch Criminal Minds? They watch it? Okay. So I don't know if you know who the smartest character is. It's definitely not Gideon. It's definitely not Rossi. Hotchkiss, I don't even know if he's like aware of where he is at any time. He's really not an intelligent character. Derek is fun and extremely handsome, but not smart. Emily and JJ were both kind of just field agents, so you probably thought I was going to say Spencer because he has like more PhDs than characters on the show. But somehow that like 100-pound skinny drink of water ended up in the field with them all the time. No. The smartest character is Penelope. Nice picture slide. I love Penelope Garcia, okay? Huge crush on her, and this isn't like a new thing. I had a poster of Penelope Garcia in my college dorm room, like, supermodels and bathing, like bikini models and stuff. I was like, yeah, give me some Penelope. That's my girl right there. And she was the smartest one because she never, except for, she did like go on a couple blind dates with a serial killer and didn't know it. I think he got kidnapped once. You had to keep, it was 15 seasons. They had to keep the storyline going a little, right? So anyway, I was fascinated with criminology, and all humans were capable of fraud. As in retail, you probably know about the fraud triangle. You really just need motivation, the access or ability to commit fraud, and whatever way that you justify it to yourself. Pattern crimes were really interested in me, so yeah, serial killers, white-collar crime, organized crime, and that's what I was really interested in. Unfortunately, I graduated in 2008 in the depth of the recession during a government hiring freeze, so I went into retail loss prevention. And that's where I got my start. One of the first, I started using a basic crystal reporting system, doing outlier detection, exception-based reporting tools, making Excel-style charts and tables, and I hated it. It just was not what I was looking for. All we would end up getting were the busiest stores in the biggest cities would have the biggest outliers. What do you know? So you need to think of different ways to cut data and trust your eyeballs to do the really heavy lifting in terms of mathematics and analytics. What you're seeing on the right there is a fraud visualization. I'll show you how this works. This is called a sequence viz. Has anybody ever been to a deli counter? Yes. Has anybody ever ordered something online and got an order number? Those numbers don't come from anywhere. They are spit out sequentially, right? I go to the deli counter, number 1, you're number 2, you're number 3, you're number 4, right? So I had a data set from a call center of people doing business-to-business sales. I was working for Staples at the time. And I had these 3 business-to-business salespeople, and they would call, hey, you usually buy paper around this time. Are you ready to buy some more? Right? And that's how it worked. And this is what the data looked like. Really simple. And of course, this silly thing is right over my control. Here we go. So this is kind of like a lame biz visualization that you would make. Oh, I could see my Rosie has most of the sales. Cool. I could see some trends. I see some weird spikes here, but I don't know, it just kind of looks like an EKG, right? And then I just got weird and I started playing around with stuff, but I did start to notice an interesting pattern. You can't quite see it yet, but sequential numbers also indicate motion through time. Think of a screw. It has an inclined plane wrapped around a cylinder, and when you turn it one way, it moves in a totally different direction. It's because you're presetting the data like to move through time. So if you order numbers like this, see I have the order numbers here? They're all so tiny you can't even see them, they're stacked up, and then time going that way. That inclined plane shows me how quickly time moves in retail time. Not calendar time, not the 24-hour clock we all live in, but the order numbers will be tighter together the quicker the sales are, the faster they are. Also, the order number, the sequence of it, should line up to an approximate date. It's not gonna spit out order number 6 after I'm 1 and you're 6. So if I see that, I know there's some weird jump. This is a super simple visualization, and I'll show you my 3 people, okay? So here's my favorite employee, Rosie the Riveter. Rosie, and you probably, it's gonna be tough to see in the back here, but if you look at this, this is every log of an order that she sold. The order number stacked vertically, time on the left. If you can kind of see these hash marks, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then a gap, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and a gap. That's a work week. The gap is a weekend, okay? And look, there's a little break here, right? So she's probably going on vacation. Oh my God, she was so good. She backlogged all of her orders that she missed from the previous month before she went on vacation. Wow, Rosie, you're amazing. And look at how tight that line is. I don't know how to describe this mathematically. At least I didn't before I got to this point. That's why I love Tableau, because I could just look at it and figure it out visually and find the pattern. Here's somebody I don't love as much. That's Lazy Susan. Okay? Susan has a very different pattern. There's very sparse information along that same inclined plane that would indicate the same cadence as Rosie, and then these big spikes. That's because she waited till the end of the week to log everything in. She would wait till the end of the month, log in all the orders that she forgot about. Not necessarily fraud, maybe stealing time, maybe inefficient, but not necessarily fraud. How I found the fraud, this is Bonnie Parker here. Bonnie Parker's a thief. How do I know that? Look at the odd distribution of dots above the regular plane, okay? What Bonnie was doing is she would call a customer, and if she couldn't get them on the line, she would look in their account and see the last order that they made themselves online, and then log into her commission and sales. So I had this was brought to me and said, okay, we know there's fraud in this business department, and there's like 1,900 hours worth of calls that we would have to listen to. We can't do that. How do we find the fraud? I highlighted all of these marks that were off of the regular plane, and it was 85% fraud. All of these sales, almost all of these sales, there was not a customer on the other side of it. Really, really simple visualization. No super LODs or parameter controls or anything like that, just an inclined plane. Go back to my presentation. And seriously though, I love Penelope. Okay, and I'll pop this one back up. So the next thing I did while I was at Staples doing work is we had online gift card fraud. So yeah, like gift cards, anonymous currency that we buy in the store. We have those online versions of those that you can email. Who would ever think to steal an anonymous currency you could buy online, right? So I needed to leverage call center associates, who are usually just answering rewards calls, to do investigations. They're really not invested. That's how I got started at Staples, was as a call center associate, and figured out a coupon fraud case, and I got my promotion. I think the degree helped too. So I needed to get them interested for like the 5% of mind share that they had to do this task. And I built a really cool dashboard with a nice scatter plot, and nobody used it. And I was getting kind of upset. So I kind of figured, all right, how would I want to use it? I'm like, oh, I just kind of want to play video games at work most of the time. So I made a scatter plot to make it look like the game Space Invaders. So each one of these characters, all I did is a regular scatter plot. I invert the axis so that all the intelligence is done in the back end in Alteryx, where I built a really complicated purchasing algorithm, because we're looking for bot activity, like $2,300 Red Lobster gift cards that were bought in like 5 seconds, which actually happened. So as the personnel, all they have to do is come in here, oh, it was a fraud alert, this is a big thing, and they can go on, all right, is it gonna mess with me now? I click on it here, gives me the trend of these sales. Okay, we've basically never sold these, and all of a sudden it's popping up. Maybe I go in and I check it out, and I check out the rest of these here, and it turns out they're okay. All I have to do is exclude them, and usually you put these guardrails on, you hide that so people don't see it, and the visualization shifts down. So just like the game, it like kind of keeps coming down at you and down at you. I went up to a call center in Halifax to see how they were doing, and I had a team manager come up to me, he goes, my team had 150,000 points last week. And I said, that's great, bro. That's $150,000. They had no idea. They really had very little reference to what they were working on. We just kind of made a game out of it. Again, scatter plot, shape chart, line chart. Nothing super advanced. Let's go back here. I think we got started a little early, so if I'm running a little bit over, you just have to wait. You have to wait for the beer. I'm sorry. So those are a couple of my more fun work examples. I don't have any of my new work stuff scrubbed to show here. As a consultant, it's kind of definitely inappropriate to share work stuff without scrubbing it. So I wanted to give you a little bit of my background. I'm a consultant now. I worked at another consulting firm. I worked at Amazon Robotics. My Tableau public profile is really personal. It's not filled with makeover Mondays and workout Wednesdays, and not that I probably shouldn't be doing those, especially because I work for Luke Stavey now, who does the runs workout Wednesdays, but so clearly those exercises are great. But my portfolio is very much about me and my personal interests. I'm a heathen, so I was raised in, my father was Protestant, my mother was Catholic, and the result of that is an anti-theist. And doing some research, there was a really cool data set that had all of the banking holidays, and I filtered it down to just the ones that were labeled as religious celebrations. And what I found is really cool is they're really tightly grouped across all the major religions right around the summer solstice, the winter solstice, and the equinox. Because we're all people on the planet, and that's what most of these holidays are built around. They're built around all these different cultures from all over the world figuring out this really amazing thing that we're on a rock going around the sun, and we can figure out where we are. And I was just blown away by this, and it was definitely better than my Advent calendar. Sorry, Jason. Another thing that I did in my tablet public profile, so again, I was a criminology major, and I had someone ask me my stance on capital punishment. It's a serious moral issue. And I was reading this great book by Anthony Galvin. It's History of Capital Punishment in America, with a particular focus on the electric chair. If you don't know, the electric chair is a very uniquely American thing. Nobody else has used it. The first example, was made by Edison. So this is a very American thing. And every stat in the book or chart or whatever all referenced the same footnote. It was called the SB files. So I had to go look at what it is, right? And I made a visualization off of the data from the SB files. And the SB files is, they had to amend this using Alteryx and a couple other programs and republish it. So it's an official record of every state sanctioned execution going back to Jamestown in 1608. And you can see some amazing trends. So it used to be the blue lines, the blue bands are American wars. So you could see dips in the Civil War, in the War of 1812, the American Revolution, World War I, World War II. After you got past the Furman Gap, so if you guys don't remember, the Supreme Court put a halt on the death penalty because it was so disparately enforced in different states. Like in Georgia, it was like second-degree rape. In Alaska or somewhere else, they didn't have it at all. And the Supreme Court decided, hey, you need to either uniform this or get rid of it. Most people thought we were going to get rid of it. We did not, of course. And it picked back up. After that point, it's just a much longer process now. And I had to go through and answer these questions. Vast majority of people who were executed committed murder. Some were part of slave revolts. I'm from Massachusetts, some were witches. Some people concealed births or were gay. And there are a lot of these crazy reasons. This is really crappy. Most people are executed on Friday. Starting in about 1900, nobody's been executed on the Sabbath except for military executions, so no weekends. And it makes for a pretty long week. If you didn't know, I was trying to use an American flag motif. How I ended up on this was I'll give you my final, people always ask, so what's your opinion? I share the opinion of SB, who logged all of this. There are certainly cases where it's justified, but even just since 2000, roughly, at half star, about 4% of people who were executed were wrongly convicted. So, in the history, if you go look at these other stats, there's a very large racial disparity in how it's enforced. So it's one of those things like, it's broken, so you can't use it. Sure. Yeah, and this was actually one of the things that got me into this was I found a piece of ledger art, which is Native American art drawn on in the Great Plains. You would have like along where they were building out the railroads, and you would have like a telegraph station. They had books and ledgers in there, and they would leave it. They would abandon it. And Native Plains Indians would find those, take those, and create art along all the pages. And there was a picture of Abraham Lincoln like this, with nooses hanging down from his arms, and Sioux Indians all along it. This was the single greatest public execution in US history. It was about, I think it was 73 people executed on the same day, the day after Christmas, from a raid.
It's really interesting to see that in line, because that is a hell of a lot more weight.
Yes, unfortunately, I couldn't get to what the population stat was. Yeah, you can only get it every 10 years for the census data. And remember, only till about here did the number 1 exist for population count in any race but white. Other races, they had to use fractions because they weren't considered whole people. So there's a lot of tough math that comes in with tough realities. It's a really difficult, deep question. I don't want to bum everybody out. That's why I use the data viz, because it's totally unbiased. It just is the history. Yeah, sorry.
It would be interesting to actually look at for the crimes that were committed, what was the rates of crime? What were because black people who murder white people are more likely to get the death penalty than white.
I'm sure that's solid analysis, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, I didn't.
No, I listen to a lot of podcasts, but I want the numbers,
Yeah.
so.
That would be interesting. I mean, you could download that
Yeah.
visualization and all the data. I leave all my stuff open for download. So if you go check out my profile and you think there's something cool, download it, play with it, and just give me credit a little bit for a starting point. There is a lot of plagiarism on mine. I've done a lot of interviews, like where you get people coming in with their ready for an interview, and they're like, "Oh, here's this great visualization I made for my interview." I was like, "Oh yeah, I remember when the first one who came up with that actually made it, and I remember it beginning this is the day." And I think you've had one or two of those, probably, yeah. Vince has a few of those. So, okay, nice transition from the death penalty to football. I don't think I sequenced this out well. So this is Jen Hunter. She's runs a Pittsburgh Tableau user group. She's also a PhD data-er. And yeah, this was like 4 years ago. I had no idea that we would end up being colleagues. I'm a huge Steelers fan, even though I grew up in New England. So this is really cool. I've done a ton of football visits. This one right here, which I'll open up to. So I looked at a while ago. Somebody said, "Oh, Julio Jones and Antonio Brown, they're way better than Jerry Rice was." If you can see that line with the gold goat at the end of it, that's Jerry Rice's career. So I don't think anybody needs to have that conversation again. A couple of people I work with are Browns or Bengals fans, so I wanted to make sure I made an AFC North viz. Also a Greatest Dynasty viz, because you can notice neither of those teams would ever be on that list. And I know that saying in front of a crowd that follows the Vikings that lost 4 straight championship games back in the day, and I'm not going to talk about 1998. But this actually, I co-authored this visualization with Jeff Plattner, who's from the area, big Vikings fan. He was at the baseball game with me. So I did the AFC version, he did the AFC version, and what this is by position, the salaries, like the actual salary cap number. So what you could do is go in by year and look at your team and see how much they're spending in each general position. So I think I have his open, or we'll just click over here. Let's go look at the Vikings. This is, let's see what year I can get. So 2020 will be the last data. And the circles on the right, I tried to kind of make a play art. So imagine, does everyone know the X's are, you ever seen the X's and O's? We're talking about football, right? The center's in the middle. What we did is we just cut it in half. Because I didn't want to do all the work of saying, like, are they a right outside linebacker or left outside linebacker? Who cares? They're linebackers, right? So what you have here is your Vikings, okay? Where's your very healthily paid quarterback? Okay, and you can see, all right, so here's the centers, the guards, the tight end, guards, center and guards, tackles, tight end, your 2 very well paid your wide receivers. This is one of your running backs, and it kind of like splits the field in half, and you can get a balance of how each team is utilizing their cap space. Here's the Vikings. This is in Minnesota.
So you like strip the field and then fold it.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah, so I could combine the positions. Let's see, the latest one that I made was on, I used to play a lot of Madden before I had kids and a farm and all that stuff. So what I made is a ternary plot, which is a really cool thing to do. There's about 60 individual player attributes in Madden. So like an 89 speed and 71 awareness and 29 agility because they trip over their shoelaces or whatever. So the way this works is you can select the 3 attributes in a position group, and the most balanced players will go towards the middle, which is the legend that's showing here, and players that have like kind of weird distribution of skills go towards the edge. It's a way, in this case, I can look at, you have scatter plot, right? There's 2 metrics that you're looking at. You can maybe add another one if you use size or color, right? I can pick any one of the 60 metrics for any one of these 3 spots, and then a different one for size, and then a different one for color scale. I don't know why you would want to do this specifically for Madden, but I could give you great reasons why you would want to do this when you're looking at a huge assortment of products, for example, going through a retail shelf, and you want to look at profitability, return rate, how much of the sales are cross-channel versus Staples use cross-channel. What was the one you were? Okay, so you can look at products with multiple variables. I like that. And I use these little legends so you can figure out how the hell to use it, because I know that's kind of confusing. I am a farmer. So in addition to working full-time as a principal consultant, running a small consulting team, and working full-time with a client, I have turkeys, chickens, geese, ducks, quail, 2 very big dogs, rabbits, and 2 kids, and a lot of plants. I love gardening, I love plants, it's kind of one of my big things.
Have you met Nick Peterson yet?
No.
Okay, obviously.
We'll look that up.
Same.
And I'm also an orchid grower, so I grow orchids. Gardening is very, very complicated. Where to put stuff in a garden is very complicated. I've read through a ton of books and heard, you gotta plant your basil next to your tomatoes, but don't plant it near your beans, and all these things. And it's very complicated. So I made a core diagram. On the left, it's kind of styled after the Old Farmer's Almanac. You can highlight any particular vegetable or fruit, and what it does is it will show you, here's the companions, here's the ones that it helps, here's the ones that help it, and here's the ones you definitely don't want to plant near. So that way I can start with the stuff I like, and then find some friends for it. I also, here's another ternary plot that I did. I went around to test my soil, take a mason jar, some dirt, shake it up with half water, and when it settles, the sand goes to the bottom because it's the heaviest particles, the silt's in the middle, and the clay is on top. So I can pretty much get a ratio of what my soil quality is like. And in this ternary plot, the middle kind of gray section is loam, and that's what we're all trying to get to as farmers, is loam. So this was just me walking around with jars of dirt in my house. This is the property as well. Here's the path where I moved our rabbit tractors around. We don't keep our rabbits in pens. We have them out in their pasture. All of our, I'm kind of too cheap to buy feed, so they cut our grass for us. On the top right, that's where I started documenting all the different plants and trees and things that were already there, because I know it grows well there, so I don't have to plant it. And then it's just, playing around with some personal stuff. In Iron Viz a little while ago, I was saying, how common is it to be a farmer? And apparently, in New Hampshire, we're the only place where small farming is pretty much going up. Everywhere else, it's either dying or being consolidated. Which is really bad in a pandemic that we don't have small local food sources, but what are you gonna do? And Emily, right, was talking about a cool, long viz. I had the same idea, except it was horizontal. So this is a horizontal scrolling viz about the Plantanthera laceras, or greenfinch block orchids, that I found on my property. All of a sudden, I had no idea they were there. I'm walking through my pasture, and boom, at like this high were these beautiful white orchids, and I didn't know what they were. So this is kind of, and I presented this at the last conference, actually. I wish I could start this gift back over. No. Well, let me restart the diff. Okay, so this is what they look like. That's where I live. See the star? That's where I live in New Hampshire. And I get so excited, I thought it was a new species. It's not. Here's my email train to all of the Fish and Game Wildlife. And I did a little bit of research, and the first guy I reached out to was at a fishery. He's like, yeah, this ain't right. I ended up at the state botanists to identify it for me. I would track the height. I've skipped through this way too fast on the GIF. I'll let it come back here. I could track the height of the 22 individual orchids by how long the stem was until the first bud and where the flowers were. Kind of track the growth that way, because they're only in flower about 10 days, the whole year. And if you look, you see the little dates on the bottom? And then it comes up to the chart. The whole length of this video is the chart. So this little hump right there is the 10 days that they're in flower.
I am visualizing you.
Yeah, I had just a little blue roller that somebody left in the house that we bought from the local lumberyard. And what I did is I was able to replan where I was going to plant. We do market flowers and market wildflowers. We pick wildflowers, we plant market flowers and some medicinal and culinary herbs. So I was able to kind of mark and avoid the orchids so they would come back. The trick with propagating native orchids is leaving the hell alone. You can't plant them. They're not endosperms, so you can't just like put them somewhere and they'll grow. You need to really leave them alone. So that's what I did. What's that?
Do cuttings work?
Not with the species, no. No. So a cutting in most orchids, we would call it keiki, and that's essentially, there's multiple ways for an orchid to reproduce, but a keiki is where like a whole other plant grows off of the plant. But you can't really like cut a piece and have it grow its own roots. Yeah, the interesting about orchids, like I said, apple seed has the shell on the outside and you put it, that's the food that's inside. Orchids don't have that. The seeds are like dust and they trick mycelial networks in the ground thinking that they're just another piece of organic matter to digest, and they siphon off energy from the fungus. So the reason that we're studying these ones is that even though it's a very common species, we reached out to UNH. Science has no idea what the exact conditions or exact fungal network is that is required to reproduce. So we take soil samples, we look for pollinators, and that's some of the science behind it. It ended up as an orchid talk, that's great. All right.
Minnesota State Flower is the latest, same thing.
Yeah, beautiful. So there, same thing. Lady slivers, it's like just stay away and hopefully it's a little acidic. So I put this slide up here to say, if you're a Tableau user, you don't have a public profile. You should, you really, really should. It is your resume. If you want to come work at PH Data, I'm going to give you a really grueling technical exam if you don't have a beautiful public profile. It shows your passion. You can speak passionately without even really having to try or rehearse because you're so interested in the topics. Like, you can't hide it. It comes out in your voice when you start talking about the topics. So please make a Tableau public profile and share your data story. It really is going to help your whole career.
Some looks like sweet.
That's what Sundays are for.
Like, how much time do you have in a day?
Well, I've had a lot more since I'm here. It's been quite, my wife was calling me at like 6 a.m. when she's going down to get eggs and like do all this stuff, and I was like, oh, they're gonna continental breakfast today, so. How much? I'm kind of highlighting because I'm kind of highlighting dinner, so I have all the time in the world when it runs faster in your head. Most of my stuff I will share and post on Twitter. If anybody's not on Twitter, it's kind of like where the data people share stuff. My name is @DataNotDoctrine. I'm glad I got that name early because I think it's really cool. And that's Thomas, my turkey, behind me. A couple people got the turkey joke, okay? And again, I work at PH Data. Snowflake's America's Partner of the Year. That's a lot of plurals in a row. You can follow us on LinkedIn. You can follow us on Twitter. You can reach out to me, or probably half the people that come to this meeting usually. And Katrina, who I'm going to say hi to Katrina because she's sick and couldn't be here, but I love working with Katrina. She's really cool, Katrina Johnson. And that's my bit. That's my whole bit. So thank you so much.
Questions?
Any intelligent or otherwise questions? Emily.
What tools are you using besides Tableau to create those dashboards?
So a lot of the backgrounds, I use PowerPoint. Let's see, the Ternary Plot, this one that I just made here, I'm going to open, everybody should have a folder on their desktop called VizBucket. So you remember my heathen Celtic thing? This is what it looks like in PowerPoint. There's nothing in Tableau in here yet. The part of Tableau was just that little firework ring. get out of here, you. Where are you? Okay, here we go. Here's my background template for the ternary plot. So I build all this stuff in PowerPoint. I'm learning Figma as well. Autumn Batani, so regular spelling of autumn, B-A-T-T-A-N-I. She did a great presentation with Lindsay Betznow. I spell her name because she also works at PH Data, is a very close friend of mine. And she did a great one on Figma. Somebody referenced Figma earlier, it was you. So she would be the absolute best place. Look her up on YouTube. She has some great templating things on her own YouTube channel. We have some great stuff on PH Data that she's built. And she has a couple cool series where it's like, she'll have a Zen master, I keep doing that, visionary, come on and try to reproduce a template using Figma, and then Kevin Flurlich, another one, come on and do it in PowerPoint. So you can kind of see the difference between the tools, and she'll help really give you a running start to using Figma. I started getting into it, and I liked it. I use it for wireframing a lot. You know, if I'm meeting with a client, I would usually start with crayons and graphing paper, and we go through and kind of draw out what the business is going to be. And Figma was a really good, quick wireframing tool. A lot of little extensions on there to make dummy charts and bar charts, so you don't have to go and like make fake data. But
out of curiosity, we use Figma for getting started, all these out.
yeah, stop looking at folders.
I want to, but I haven't tried.
I feel like where it gets me is that there's an enormous amount of money.
I think what it is you realize how ingrained most of the Microsoft tools are in your skill set. We talk about Excel a lot, and people want these Excel-style charts. It's a weird thing that everybody knows how to use that. It's like, it is. Same thing with PowerPoint. You right-click and left-click, and you move around, and you add animations much faster than some people do in Figma. You gotta just use it to learn how to use it thing with Figma, and then you get comfortable with it pretty quickly. So it's not that the Figma's that difficult to learn how to use. You just don't realize how good you are at that other stuff already. Yes, that's where the crayons come in. I use crayons, color pencils, and graphing. All my notebooks are graphing paper, and I use crayons and markers or whatever my kids haven't eaten. And they particularly like the orange crayons. Yeah, they're good though. I like the red ones, but I'm more of a summer palette. Any other questions? Does anybody know? Thank you. And I'll stop sharing. Thank you.
Very entertaining.
And now you get to watch me walk back, all the people online. Hi, Katrina, I see you in your big chair.
Okay. Well, okay, so it is 4:01. I think we officially said that we would end our content at 4:01 and start our happy hour. So does anybody object to ending on time and starting our happy hour? Online? I think we're good. Okay, well, just to round this out, thank you again to Amy and Kate and Will. It was just great presentations all around. They're always really great, but you guys just brought a level of passion and enthusiasm that we don't see every single time, so thank you. And thanks for joining. And thank you all for being in here in person. It just warms my heart to see so many of you in this room. So, all right, let's hit the happy hour. We'll see you guys next month.